Dust has one more movie that he has to review there. This is going to be
Yes, I
another
do.
solo review. I did not get a chance to see this, but it's the documentary film that is out right now, starring Matt Walsh there, Daily Wire contributor, and it is I Am Racist. Dust, what are your thoughts on this documentary?
I Am Racist stars Matt Walsh and is in charge of a mockumentary in the style of Borat. Kind of as like if Borat was more left leaning, this one's definitely more right leaning. He is also one of the major people for the Daily Wire, and the project of this movie is basically to follow a bunch of DEI inclusion movement individuals, people who make a career on talking about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. A lot of white is like a white guilt support groups, many different faculties, and it goes from people who are like that to even to then middle America to out on the streets. Kind of all similar style of Borat, where there's clearly settings where he's undercover, kind of talking to people and speaking with them, and then loosely held together by some skits of that aren't kind of like that. We can tell is a bit more they know on the up and up, but it's a bit more loose to kind of create like a thread line of a plot an ending. I think what surprised me most about this movie was how honestly funny it was. There are many moments in this movie where, depending on kind of on the fence, to just you just kind of go like, "What the fuck?" Or someone says something, or just something happens that's just kind of awkward or funny. And I was in a theater that was actually decently packed for this, and there are many times that I was laughing along with other people, and we were all laughing at the same thing. If Borat was the main thing of Borat was asking ridiculous questions to mostly normal people, Matt Walsh as an undercover DEI expert asks normal questions to ridiculous people. It just a lot of it is is cringe. A lot of the answers, a lot of like their setups of the situations are kind of cringe. But that's also part of the comedy in it and a lot of the back and forth. The movie at one point has a quote by Thomas Sowell, if you know about him. He's an author of many different books. And one of his quotes is used in the movie, which I think is an excellent thesis for what the documentary is trying to say, at least the mockumentary is. And it's quoted as racism is not dead, but it is on life support, kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as quote unquote racist. And I think that's what the main crutch of this mockumentary is trying to say. The mockumentary isn't trying to say, oh no, racism is dead, or this is all a bunch of ridiculousness, there's no racism. No, that's not what they're saying. What this mockumentary is mostly focusing on is how, unfortunately, racism is a big business. And there's a lot of people taking advantage of racism to make money, to hustle, and take advantage of people's self guilt or biases. An example of this is there's some younger women, white women who start in like a support group in the very beginning of the movie, and a lot of them are just he's just interacting with them, and or when he just happens to be there, are talking like, oh well, they think themselves pretty open minded, think they're like, well, I don't consider myself racist, but I want to know more. I want to do as best I can, be a better person, and all this and that. And by the time they've gone through these quote unquote DEI experts, or going through these different shops where they pay money, by the way. They pay money to these people to sit there and at dinners and basically tell them how basically you've internalized your own racism and you don't realize it. And they by the end of the documentary, I think some of them are just so beaten down, just so hurt and broken, and just feel like all that what a confidence, self confidence they have is just kind of drained. Now there are some of them that go, "This is a bunch of bullshit," and I just basically wasted money to basically be lied to. But there's some that take it to heart, and that's the tragedy of it. There's also a on the street segment where it's in the trailer, but they he wants to have a Washington Monument changed to the George Floyd Monument, but to raise the structure by 30% and repaint it black. And he goes around and gets a lot of actual signatures from people, even if they may or may not believe in it. And it almost kind of is an interesting question of what we, even if we don't believe in something, almost like a herd mentality, we might like agree with, but just to like not be seen as different. And then in the middle of the movie, at one point, he goes to Middle America and tries to actually go to like a biker club and ask, "Oh, how do you feel about your internalized whiteness?" And they're just like drinking like a beer and going, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?" And you just get all kinds of walks of life in it. That by the end, you kind of see the unfortunate grift, and the ultimate message of the documentary is at the end of the day, we're all people, and the only real way to kind of get around this, as one of the Black Americans interviewed says, the only real solution to racism is to love one another. And I think that's ultimately what this documentary is trying to say is, at the end of the day, try and love one another and do the best you can.
Okay. All right. So what would be your rating for the movie?
I actually quite enjoyed this documentary. It's going to be a shame because I know a lot of people just from the personality of Matt Walsh will probably go, it's going to be very right wing. It's going to come in there. It's going to be very super biased, and I'm not going to enjoy it. But on its own, I was actually quite astonished on how he tried his best to be very central on it. He tried to just take the situations, ask normal questions, and got got situations that were abnormal by asking these normal questions. He tried the best he could. Well, yes, it's in a Borat style, and yes, he's in a disguise at certain points. A lot of times he doesn't do anything, and people just kind of narc on themselves or bring up situations that are kind of ridiculous. And it really paints a very interesting picture. It says a lot about us. It says a lot about this DEI environment. It says a lot about people abusing and using that to intimidate, using that to make money, using that to try and get clout when it may be pretty unfounded. I think it's a very well done documentary. There's some things I don't agree with necessarily in how he made the approach in making it, but ultimately, I think it was a well done, well put together style of a mockumentary with some genuine. I mean, it's a genuine good message, at least a nice message in it that we all should just care about one another, and it was actually funny for a lot of it. For the most part, I mean, it'll depend on who you are if you'll laugh as much as I did, but I did find it funny, and I did find the situations interesting enough as their own. And because of that, I have to give this a strong tune in. Maybe even hmm, yeah, I'm bordering on a low peak, but I'm gonna go with a strong tune in. This is definitely a movie I would recommend going to the theaters and seeing. I think
Um,
it's definitely earned it.
let me see. Let me see how it's doing in the box office right
It's
now.
doing actually quite well for a documentary.
Let's see
In
here.
my theater, it was actually surprisingly packed.
So it's at top 5 right now in box office, right now, and total it's made 5 million right now, close to 6 million. It's only been released domestically right now. So it has that going against it. And I forgot to mention this with the
Mhm.
Reagan movie, which Dust just reviewed before this. Just mentioning, I guess, there's an audience for this type of stuff that, do it dedicated. That's why you see a lot of faith-based movies.
Mhm.
And so that's a very dedicated audience of
Oh yeah,
people
very
there
dedicated.
that will go see something like this. Let me see. I don't know exactly what the budget on this was on this movie.
Or I mean, am I racist or Reagan? Which one?
This movie.
Three
So
million.
yeah, it was a $3 million budget there. So yeah, and it's so far 5.6 million. Yeah, so it's at that right now. Yeah.
And honestly, on my way out, there were a lot of from passerbys, people. There was a lot of positive praise for the movie overall. So lot of good word of mouth overall for this movie. So, and honestly, I would recommend it if you get the chance. Go see it. Don't be embarrassed to go into this movie. It's not what some people are saying. He's not. It's a. It, try to at least just try to give it a chance. If you're uncomfortable with it or you're not going to go see it, I understand. But yeah, if you want to go see something kind of different, this one's not bad. It's not bad.
So this is now the according to Wikipedia here. So if you the
Mm.
highest grossing documentary film of 2024, surpassing the previous holder, Jesus Thirst here. I don't know anything about Jesus Thirst, but yeah, surpassed that one. And then and this is from the Hollywood Reporter, and it says the top debut 2024 so far for a doc and the third biggest of the past decade, according to Hollywood Reporter. So